Emma's legs burned as she climbed the stairs to the third floor, the envelope clutched against her chest like a shield. Her breath came in ragged gasps, part exertion and part panic. Behind her, somewhere in the building, she imagined Michael's people realizing she'd gone off script. The service exit was exactly where James said it would be, a gray metal door marked employees only. Emma hit it at full speed, bursting into the autumn sunlight of a narrow alley that smelled like garbage and rain. James Reeves was leaning against a dark blue sedan, watching the door. When he saw her, relief flashed across his weathered face. "Get in, now," Emma didn't argue. She dove into the passenger seat, and James was moving before she even got the door closed. The sedan peeled out of the alley with a screech of tires that made her heart jump into her throat. "Did anyone follow you?" James asked, his eyes flicking between the road and the rearview mirror. "I don't know. I don't think so. You'd be surprised how easy it is to follow someone who doesn't know they're being followed." He turned sharply onto a side street, then another, weaving through traffic with practiced precision. "You have the evidence?" Emma held up the envelope. "It's worse than I thought. This isn't just corporate fraud. Michael's involved in everything. Bribery, money laundering, maybe even murder. Victoria knew. That's why she collected it." James's jaw tightened. She was going to testify. Had immunity worked out with the FBI, protection lined up? Then her brakes failed on a mountain road. "Michael doesn't leave loose ends. He saved my sister's life. He bought your loyalty." "There's a difference." James glanced at her. "Don't romanticize him, Emma. Michael Torrance is a sociopath in an expensive suit. He helps people when it serves him, destroys them when it doesn't." Emma's phone rang. Unknown number. She stared at it. "Don't answer," James said. "It might be my sister. Lily's at work, right?" "St. Catherine's Hospital, night shift nurse?" Emma turned to stare at him. "How do you know?" "Because I've been watching Michael's operation for 2 years. I know about you. About Lily. About what Michael did to save her and what he made you do in return. I know about Theodore Vincent. I know all of it." James's voice wasn't unkind, just factual. "Victoria came to me 6 months ago. She told me about you. Said Michael had a young woman on a leash, someone who'd do anything to keep her sister alive. Victoria felt guilty about it. Said she'd been in the same position, once trapped by Michael's generosity. What happened to her? I mean, before the accident? Michael's former accountant. She knew where all the bodies were buried, literally and figuratively. He kept her close, paid her well, made sure she was too afraid to talk. But people get tired of being afraid. Victoria decided she'd rather die free than live as Michael's prisoner. James turned onto a highway on-ramp. "Looks like she got her wish." Emma's phone kept ringing. She finally silenced it, but immediately it started again. Different number this time. "They're panicking," James observed. "Good, means they don't know where you are yet. Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere we can review that evidence and make a plan." "What kind of plan?" "The kind where we take down Michael Torrance and you and Lily get to live normal lives again." Emma wanted to believe him, but trusting strangers had gotten her into this mess. "Why are you doing this? You said Michael destroyed your life. How?" James was quiet for a long moment. The sedan hummed along the highway, leaving the city behind. Finally, he spoke and his voice was rough with old pain. "I was a detective. 15 years on the force, good record, citations for bravery. I was investigating a series of arsons, warehouses burning down, insurance fraud we suspected. Trail led back to a shell company owned by Michael Torrance. I got a warrant, started digging deeper. Then suddenly, evidence disappeared. Witnesses recanted. My captain told me to drop it." James's hands tightened on the wheel. "I didn't, kept pushing. Then child pornography showed up on my work computer. Anonymous tip to internal affairs. I was arrested, suspended, investigated. Lost my job, my reputation, my marriage. My daughter won't speak to me. But you didn't." "Of course I didn't, it was planted. But by the time I proved it, the damage was done. Took me 18 months and every penny I had to clear my name. By then, the case against Michael was cold. He'd won, again. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be smart. Michael operates on fear and leverage. He finds people with something to lose like you and Lily, like Victoria, like me, and he exploits it. The only way to beat him is to remove his leverage. How do we do that?" James smiled grimly. "We give the FBI everything they need to lock him up for life. And we do it before he figures out where you are." They drove for another 30 minutes, Emma watching the landscape change from urban sprawl to suburban neighborhoods, to something more rural. Her phone had stopped ringing, which somehow felt worse than when it wouldn't stop. She thought about Lily at work, going about her shift, completely unaware that their lives were falling apart. "I need to warn my sister," Emma said. "Not yet. Your phone's probably compromised. Michael has resources. He can track your calls, your location. We contact Lily, but we do it smart. From a burner phone, and only to tell her to go somewhere safe. She won't understand. She asks questions, then you tell her the truth. That the man who saved her life 3 years ago is a criminal, and now he's coming after both of you because you know too much." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "This is my fault. I should have let you die," she said, even though she was talking to herself. To the Emma from 3 years ago who'd made an impossible choice. "I should have..." "Don't." James's voice was sharp. "Don't do that. You saved your sister. You did what anyone would do in your position. Michael's the villain here, not you. Don't let him make you the bad guy of your own story." They pulled off the highway onto a winding country road. Trees pressed close on both sides, their autumn leaves creating a canopy of gold and red. After a few more turns, James pulled into the driveway of a small cabin hidden among the pines. "Where are we?" "Safe house. Belongs to a friend who owes me. No connection to me or you. Off the grid as far as records go." James killed the engine and turned to face her. "Inside, we go through that evidence. We document everything. Then we call my contact at the FBI, a woman named Agent Patricia Hill. She's been trying to build a case against Michael for 3 years. What you have could be the breakthrough she needs." Emma looked at the cabin. It was modest, weathered, with a porch that sagged slightly and windows that needed cleaning. It looked like the kind of place where people went to escape the world, or hide from it. What if this doesn't work? What if James waited until she looked at him? Michael isn't invincible. He's just rich and connected. But rich and connected people go to jail too when the evidence is solid enough. You did the hard part. You got the evidence, now let me do my part. They went inside. The cabin was sparse but clean, a main room with a kitchenette, a couple of bedrooms, a bathroom with questionable plumbing. James set Emma up at a wooden table and brought out a laptop that looked like it had survived several wars. "Start from the beginning," he said. "Tell me everything you saw in that envelope." For the next 2 hours, Emma and James went through Victoria Hollis's evidence. Page by page, document by document, they built a timeline of Michael Torrance's criminal enterprise. It was staggering. Michael had been laundering money for organized crime for at least a decade. His venture capital firm was a front, a way to move dirty money into legitimate investments. The acquisitions, the business deals, the charitable foundations, all of it was part of an elaborate shell game designed to hide millions in illegal funds. But it was worse than money laundering. There were emails discussing problems that needed permanent solutions. Payments to individuals with military backgrounds and criminal records. Obituaries of people who'd crossed Michael, all of whom had died in convenient accidents. Car crashes, suicides, overdoses. One man had drowned in his own pool despite being a competitive swimmer. Victoria had meticulously documented 23 suspicious deaths over 12 years, all connected to people who threatened Michael's operation. "He's not just a criminal," Emma whispered, staring at the photographs of smiling people who were now dead. "He's a serial killer, Emma. He pays people to kill for him. That's worse in some ways. Takes a special kind of psychopath to outsource murder." James leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. "This is bigger than I thought. Federal RICO charges, racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder. If we can prove even half of this, Michael goes away forever." "If," Emma repeated. "What if he has people inside the FBI? What if he..." Her burner phone James had given her one when they arrived rang. They both froze. "No one has this number," James said slowly. "I just bought it an hour ago." Emma picked it up with shaking hands. Unknown caller. She looked at James, who nodded. She answered. "Hello?" "Emma." The voice was familiar, smooth, controlled. "Michael Torrance." "Let's talk like adults." Emma's blood turned to ice. "How did you get this number?" "The same way I get everything. Resources and patience." Michael sounded almost amused. "You've had quite an adventure today. The bank, the evidence, your new friend James Reeves." "I know where you are, Emma. I've known for the past hour. I'm actually impressed you made it further than I expected." James grabbed the phone, put it on speaker. Michael, it's been a while. James, still playing detective? I thought you learned your lesson about investigating things that don't concern you. Child pornography on my computer was a nice touch. Very subtle. All's fair in business, James. You know that. Michael's tone remained pleasant. Conversational, like they were discussing the weather. Now, let's discuss the situation. Emma has something that belongs to me. I want it back. It doesn't belong to you, Emma said, finding her voice. It belongs to the FBI. It's evidence of crimes you've committed. Evidence that Victoria stole. Evidence obtained illegally, I might add. It won't hold up in court, and you both know it. But it could create complications. Messy investigations, frozen assets, bad publicity. I'd rather avoid all that. So you can keep killing people? Emma's anger surprised her, burning away some of the fear. I saw the list, Michael. 23 people. 23 deaths you're responsible for. I'm responsible for nothing but running a successful business. If people made poor choices that led to unfortunate accidents, that's not on me, Michael paused. But let's discuss your choice, Emma. You have something I want. I have something you want. Emma's stomach dropped. What? Your sister, Lily. Sweet girl, really. Dedicated nurse. Works so hard. Be a shame if something happened to her. Lily. You son of a... Careful, Emma. I'm offering you a trade. The evidence for Lily's safety. Simple transaction. You bring me that envelope, we both go our separate ways, and life continues. James shook his head violently, mouthing no. But Emma was already spiraling. Lily. Michael had Lily. Prove she's okay, Emma demanded. There was a moment of silence, then a shuffling sound. Then, Em? What's going on? These men showed up at the hospital, and Lily. They said you were in trouble, and I needed to come with them. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm fine, Lil. The phone was taken away. Michael came back on. She's unharmed. Confused, frightened, but unharmed. She'll stay that way if you cooperate. If you don single quotes double quotes, he trailed off, letting the implication hang. Don't hurt her, please. She has nothing to do with this. Then bring me what I want. Tonight, midnight. There's an old warehouse at 1247 Industrial Drive. Come alone. Bring the envelope. We'll make the exchange, and this all goes away. How do I know you'll let her go? You don't, but you don't have much choice, do you? Midnight, Emma. Don't be late. And if you bring the police, or your friend James, or anyone else, Lily dies. Am I clear? Yes. Good girl. The line went dead. Emma stood frozen, the phone still in her hand, her mind refusing to process what had just happened. Lily. Michael had Lily. It's a trap, James said quietly. You know that, right? You show up with that evidence, he kills you both. Can't risk either of you talking. I don't care. I have to... Ma, listen to me. James grabbed her shoulders, forced her to meet his eyes. Michael is counting on you being emotional. That's his leverage, but we can beat him. We call the FBI now. They raid the warehouse, arrest everyone, rescue Lily. And if something goes wrong? If they're too slow, if Michael's people kill her before, the alternative is you both die. Is that better? Emma pulled away, pacing the small cabin like a caged animal. There has to be another way. Some way to save her and take him down. Emma looked at the evidence spread across the table. Victoria's meticulous documentation, 23 deaths, millions in laundered money. A criminal empire that had operated with impunity for over a decade. And on the other end of all, that evil was her sister. That's what Lily had said this morning, a lifetime ago. I'm going, Emma said. Emma, I'm going to that warehouse. I'm trading the evidence for Lily, and then I'm disappearing with her. And Michael can rot for all I care. He'll kill you, maybe, but at least Lily has a chance. Emma turned to face James, and she felt something shift inside her. A hardening, a decision. You want to help? You call the FBI. Tell them everything. Give them copies of the evidence. You made copies, right? James hesitated, then nodded. Digital backups. Already sent to a secure server. Good, so they have what they need, but I need time. I need to get Lily out safely before federal agents storm in and turn this into a hostage situation. What's your plan? I don't have one yet. But I have 7 hours to figure it out. The warehouse at 1247. Industrial Drive was exactly as clitched as Emma expected, a hulking structure of corrugated metal and broken windows, surrounded by a chain-link fence and sitting in the kind of neighborhood where police sirens were background music. Emma arrived at 11:45 p.m., 15 minutes early, driving James's sedan. She'd left him at the cabin with strict instructions to wait until 12:30 before contacting the FBI. If she wasn't out by then, he could assume the worst. The envelope sat on the passenger seat, and tucked into her jacket was her phone set to record. If this went bad, at least there'd be evidence. She parked outside the fence and sat for a moment, gathering courage she didn't feel. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was trying to escape her chest. Every survival instinct screamed at her to drive away, to let James call the FBI now, to trust the system. But the system had failed too many times. Victoria was dead. Theodore Vincent was in prison for crimes while Michael walked free. James had lost everything trying to do the right thing. Emma got out of the car. The warehouse door was unlocked, opening with a rusty squeal that made her jump. Inside, the space was cavernous and dark, lit only by a few work lights set up in the center. Emma could see figures moving in the shadows, the gleam of weapons, the cold calculation of professional criminals. And in the center, under the lights, sat Lily. She was tied to a metal chair, duct tape over her mouth, her eyes wide with fear. When she saw Emma, she made a muffled sound and struggled against her restraints. "Lily," Emma started forward, but a man stepped out of the shadows. Large, muscled, with cold eyes and a gun pointed casually at Emma's chest. "That's far enough? You got the envelope?" Emma held it up. "Let her go first. Not how this works." "Then you don't get the evidence." The man smiled without humor. "Then your sister dies, and we take it from your corpse. Choose." A slow clap echoed through the warehouse. Emma's stomach turned as Michael Torrance emerged from the darkness, impeccably dressed even for a midnight confrontation in an abandoned building. "Always so dramatic, Emma. Just like Victoria." Michael looked genuinely pleased to see her. "Though I must say you've been far more entertaining. Victoria just hid. You ran. You fought. I respect that. Let my sister go." "In due time." First, the envelope. Emma walked forward slowly, the envelope extended. Michael met her halfway, his hand outstretched. For a moment, they were close enough that Emma could smell his expensive cologne, see the absolute lack of humanity in his eyes. "You know," Michael said conversationally as he took the envelope, "I really did want to help you 3 years ago. Your sister's situation was tragic. I admire family loyalty. It's rare. You used me. I invested in you." "There's a difference. You got what you needed. I got what I needed." "That's business." "Business? You destroyed Theodore Vincent. You've killed 23 people. I've built an empire." Michael flipped through the envelope's contents, his expression unreadable. "You know what your problem is, Emma? You're still thinking small. You see these documents and you see crimes. I see opportunities, leverage, power. The world runs on these things, not on your naive sense of right and wrong. The FBI has copies. James sent them everything." "You're finished." Michael actually laughed. "James Reeves? The disgraced detective who planted child pornography on his own computer? Whose testimony is compromised by a grudge and a drinking problem? That's your savior?" He shook his head. "Emma, the FBI has been trying to build a case against me for years. They've failed because I'm protected. Judges on my payroll. Prosecutors who owe me favors. Politicians whose campaigns I funded. This evidence?" He waved the envelope. "It'll disappear." "It always does. Not this time." "Always this time. That's how the world works." Michael tucked the envelope under his arm. "Now about your sister. I'm going to keep my word. I'm a man of my word, after all. She goes free. You, unfortunately, don't." The man with the gun stepped forward. Emma's mind raced. This was it. The moment she'd known was coming. She traded the evidence for nothing. Michael would kill her, probably kill Lily too despite his promises, and walk away clean. She'd failed. Then James Reeves's voice crackled over a speaker somewhere in the warehouse. "Michael Torrance, this is the FBI. You are surrounded. Drop your weapons and surrender immediately." Everything happened at once. The warehouse lights blazed to life. Agents in tactical gear swarmed in from every entrance. Michael's men scattered, some dropping weapons, others raising them in futile defiance. Gunshots echoed, brief, controlled, professional. Michael turned to Emma with something like admiration. "You clever girl, you weren't recording. You were transmitting." Emma pulled her phone from her jacket. The screen showed live feed active FBI task force. "Victoria wasn't stupid," Emma said. surprised by how steady her voice was. She wouldn't have kept only physical evidence. James found her digital backups 2 months ago. The FBI's had copies of everything since September. They've been building their case. Tonight was about catching you in the act. Kidnapping, conspiracy, threatening a federal witness. Witness? Michael's eyes narrowed. You agreed to testify? 2 hours ago. Immunity deal. Lily too. We both testify against you and we disappear into witness protection. New names. New lives. Free from you forever. Michael lunged for her, but federal agents tackled him before he got close. Emma watched as they forced him to the ground, reading him his rights while he struggled and shouted threats that nobody seemed to care about. Other agents cut Lily free. Emma ran to her sister, pulling her into a fierce embrace as Lily sobbed against her shoulder. I'm sorry, Emma whispered. I'm so sorry. You saved me, Lily said through tears. Again, you always save me. You saved yourself. You're the brave one. You always have been. They held each other while federal agents processed the scene, while Michael Torrance was led away in handcuffs. While the warehouse that was supposed to be their tomb became the site of his downfall. James found them a few minutes later. He looked tired but satisfied. It's over. Patricia says they have enough to charge him with RICO violations, conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, kidnapping, witness tampering. He'll die in prison. What about his connections? The judges, the politicians. Being investigated as we speak. Michael wasn't the only one who kept detailed records. Turns out Victoria was even more thorough than we thought. There's enough corruption here to keep federal prosecutors busy for years. Emma felt tears on her cheeks, though she wasn't sure when she'd started crying. What happens to us now? You meet with the U.S. Marshals. They'll set you up with new identities, relocate you somewhere far from here. New life, clean slate. James's expression softened. It won't be easy, witness protection rarely is. But you'll be safe, both of you. Will I ever see you again? Probably not. That's how this works. But I'll know you're out there somewhere, living the life Victoria never got to live. That's enough for me. Emma wanted to say something profound, something that captured her gratitude, but all she could manage was, thank you. Thank Victoria. She's the one who started this. You just finished it. They were separated, then Emma and Lily taken by U.S. Marshals to a processing center. James disappearing into his own life. Michael Torrance vanishing behind the walls of federal detention. Resolution 6 months later. Emma stood on a beach she'd never seen before. In a town whose name she was still getting used to, watching waves crash against sand that sparkled in the morning sun. Her name wasn't Emma anymore. Legally, officially, she was Hannah Mitchell now. Lily was Lily still, but with a new last name, Mitchell, and a nursing job at a small hospital that didn't ask too many questions about relocating employees. They'd left everything behind. Friends. Memories. The apartment where they'd rebuilt their lives. After their parents died. Emma's job at the Meridian. Every photograph. Every piece of their history. But they were alive, and they were free. The news of Michael Torrance's arrest had made national headlines. The trial was ongoing, expected to last months, with dozens of co-defendants and hundreds of charges. Emma would testify eventually, via video link from an undisclosed location. But for now, she was just another person living a quiet life by the ocean. She'd started writing. Stories, at first. Then something bigger, a book about a young woman who made an impossible choice and learned to live with the consequences. Her therapist said it was good for her, processing trauma through fiction. Emma wasn't sure it was fiction anymore. You coming in? Lily called from the water. She was waist-deep in the waves, her short hair wet and wild, a smile on her face that reached her eyes. 4 years cancer-free now. A survivor in every sense of the word. In a minute. Emma called back. She thought about Victoria Hollis sometimes. A woman she'd never met, but who saved her life as surely as Emma had saved Lily's. Victoria had died trying to stop a monster, and maybe she'd failed in the moment. But her evidence, her meticulous documentation, had brought Michael down in the end. I hope you're braver than I was, Victoria had written. Emma didn't know if she'd been brave. She'd been terrified every step of the way. But maybe bravery wasn't about not being afraid. Maybe it was about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. Her phone buzzed, a new phone, a new number, known only to a handful of people, a text from a blocked number. Emma's heart jumped until she read it. Patricia Hill here. Wanted you to know Michael pled guilty to avoid trial. Life without parole, federal supermax. He'll never see daylight again. You did good. Both of you, live well. P.H. Emma read the message 3 times, then deleted it as instructed. She looked out at the ocean, at Lily playing in the waves, at the life they'd built from the ashes of everything they'd lost. Michael Torrance had saved Lily once, and he'd used that salvation as a leash, a chain, a weapon to bend Emma to his will. But Emma had broken that chain. She'd saved herself. And in doing so, she'd saved dozens of future victims, exposed a criminal empire, and given her sister a future free from the shadow of the man who once owned their gratitude. The cost had been high. New names, lost connections. A life lived looking over their shoulders, even in witness protection. But as Emma waded into the ocean to join Lily, feeling the cold water shock her system and the sun warm her face, she realized something profound. Freedom always costs something. The question isn't whether you pay the price. The question is whether you're willing to. Emma had paid. And she'd decided it was worth it. Emma and Lily spent the day on the beach, then went back to their small apartment overlooking the water. They made dinner together, pasta with vegetables, nothing fancy, and ate while watching a movie Lily had picked. It was comfortable, normal, the kind of ordinary evening Emma had once thought she'd never have again. As they were cleaning up, Lily suddenly stopped, her hands in soapy water, and turned to Emma with an expression that was hard to read. Hannah? She corrected herself with a small smile. Can I ask you something? Of course. What happened that night? At the warehouse? You never really told me everything. Just that Michael kidnapped me to get to you and that you worked with the FBI to bring him down. But there's more, isn't there? There's something you're not saying. Emma dried her hands slowly, buying time. They'd agreed, her and the therapist and the U.S. Marshals, that Lily should know everything eventually. That secrets between them would only breed resentment and fear. But knowing that intellectually and actually saying the words were two different things. Yeah, Emma said finally. There's more. They sat on the couch, the movie forgotten, and Emma told her sister everything. About Michael's original deal 3 years ago. About Theodore Vincent and the corporate espionage. About the $2 tip and the note under the plate. About Victoria Hollis and James Reeves and the choice Emma had faced in that bank vault. Lily listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from surprise to horror to something like awe. So you've been carrying this guilt for 3 years? Lily said when Emma finished. You thought you'd help destroy an innocent man? Vincent wasn't innocent. But that doesn't make what I did right. You saved my life. At someone else's expense. At a criminal's expense. Michael used you, Em. You were a victim too. You know that, right? Emma wasn't sure she did. But she was learning. The therapist says the same thing. The therapist is smart. Lily grabbed Emma's hand. Listen to me. What you did, all of it, was because you loved me. You made impossible choices in impossible situations. But in the end, you did the right thing. You exposed Michael. You saved who knows how many future victims. You're a hero, even if you don't feel like one. I don't feel like a hero. I feel like someone who got lucky. Luck is what you make it. You made yours. We made ours. Lily squeezed her hand. And yeah, our life is weird now. New names, new town, can't talk about our past with anyone. But Hannah, we're together. We're safe. And we're free. That's not luck. That's you fighting for us. Emma felt tears threatening again. She'd cried more in the past 6 months than in the rest of her life combined. I was so scared I'd lose you. You won't. Not to Michael, not to cancer, not to anything. You and me against the world, remember? Yeah, I remember. They hugged, and Emma felt something inside her loosen. Not healing completely, that would take time, maybe years, but starting to. The guilt would always be there, a permanent resident in her mind. But maybe Lily was right. Maybe she'd done the best she could with terrible options. Maybe that was enough. That night, Emma lay in bed, unable to sleep despite her exhaustion. She kept thinking about that moment in the Meridian when she lifted the plate and found the note. That single piece of paper that had changed everything. If you're reading this, you passed the first test. But it hadn't been a test. Not really. It had been a trap, a manipulation, Michael's final attempt to control her. He thought she'd deliver the evidence without looking, thought she'd be too scared to fight back, thought he could use her one more time and then dispose of her like he disposed of Victoria. He'd been wrong. Emma pulled out her laptop, a basic model provided by the Marshals, and opened the document she'd been working on. Her book. The fictionalized account of the past 3 years that was really just her life with names changed and details altered. She read the last line she'd written. The note changed everything, but she almost threw it away with the trash. Emma started typing, the words flowing now, the story demanding to be told. She'd thought the note was the beginning. A cryptic message from a stranger that would lead her into danger. But looking back, she realized the note was the end. The final move in a game she'd been playing for 3 years without knowing the rules. The real beginning had been the moment she said yes to a devil's bargain in a hotel ballroom, trading her future for her sister's life. Everything after that, the courier job, the guilt, the fear, the surveillance, the feeling of being owned by someone who bought her loyalty. With blood money, all of it had been leading to that warehouse. And in that warehouse, she'd finally made a choice that was truly hers. Not forced by circumstance or fear or desperation. She'd chosen to fight, to expose the truth. To risk everything not for survival, but for justice. Maybe that's what freedom really was. Not the absence of consequences, but the ability to choose which consequences you were willing to accept. Emma stopped typing and read what she'd written. It wasn't perfect. It needed work, revision, polish. But it was honest. And right now, honesty felt like the most important thing. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. This is James. Hope you're doing well in your new life. Thought you should know Victoria's parents wanted me to give you something. I've sent it to your P.O. box. Open it when you're ready. Take care. Junior. Emma stared at the message. James Reeves, the man who'd saved her life, who'd lost everything fighting the same fight Victoria had died for. He'd found a way to contact her despite the rules, despite the risks. The next morning, Emma went to the post office and retrieved a small package from her P.O. box. Inside was a jewelry box, and inside that was a necklace delicate silver chain with a small pendant shaped like a key. There was a note, handwritten on aged paper. Dear Emma, or whoever you are now, my daughter Victoria wore this necklace every day. She bought it for herself after leaving Michael's employment, before she started gathering evidence against him. She said it reminded her that she held the key to her own freedom, she just had to be brave enough to use it. When Detective Reeves told us what you did, how you finished what Victoria started, we knew we wanted you to have this. Our daughter died trying to free herself from a monster. You lived and you freed others in the process. We don't know you. We'll never meet you. But we're grateful to you for giving Victoria's death meaning. She didn't die for nothing. She died so that others, like you, might live free. Wear this necklace if you want. Or don't, but know that somewhere 2 grieving parents are grateful that their daughter's courage inspired someone else's. Thank you for finishing her fight. Catherine and Robert Hollis. Emma held the necklace in her trembling hands, the silver chain catching the light streaming through her apartment window. She thought about Victoria Hollis, a woman she'd never met but whose ghost had haunted her for months. A woman who'd been just like her, trapped, afraid, owned by Michael Torrance's generosity. But Victoria had been braver. She'd started fighting back years before Emma even knew she was in a fight. Emma fastened the necklace around her neck. The key pendant settled against her chest, right over her heart. It felt right somehow. A reminder that she'd escaped. That she'd chosen freedom over fear. That afternoon, Emma and Lily went for a walk along the beach. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that seemed almost too beautiful to be real. Seagulls wheeled overhead, their cries mixing with the crash of waves. That's new, Lily said, nodding at the necklace. Gift from Victoria's parents. The woman who started all this? I remember. Lily was quiet for a moment. Do you ever wonder what your life would be like if you said no to Michael 3 years ago? Emma had thought about this question 1,000 times. Every day. What do you think would have happened? You'd be dead, Emma said simply. There was no point in sugarcoating it. We couldn't afford your treatment. I tried everything else. Michael was the only option left. So you'd make the same choice again? Would she? Emma watched the waves rolling in, endless and inevitable. I don't know. Now that I know what Michael really is, what he made me part of, I want to say no. I want to say I'd find another way. But if I was back in that moment, watching you die, knowing I could save you? She turned to look at her sister. Yeah, I'd probably make the same choice. And I'd hate myself for it, just like I did the first time. Don't hate yourself? Lily stopped walking, forcing Emma to face her. You did what you had to do. And then, when you got the chance, you made it right. You can't ask for more than that, can I? Victoria asked for more. She died asking for more. Victoria made her choice, you made yours. Both were brave. Both mattered. Lily smiled, that crook smile that Emma had nearly lost forever. Stop trying to be perfect, Em. Just be good enough. You've always been good enough for me. They walked in comfortable silence after that, two sisters with new names and old scars, building a life from whatever pieces they could salvage. 3 months later, Emma received another message. This one was from Agent Patricia Hill. Thought you'd want to know Michael Torrance was found dead in his cell this morning. Official cause is suicide, but between you and me, we suspect otherwise. He'd been cooperating with prosecutors, naming names, flipping on his partners. Someone wanted him silenced. The investigation into his network continues. So far, we've arrested 47 people, judges, lawyers, politicians, business people. The corruption went deeper than we imagined. Your testimony helped us understand the scope of it all. I know this news might be complicated for you. Michael saved your sister, then nearly destroyed you both, but whatever else he was, he's gone now. You're truly free. Take care of yourself and your sister. You both earned this peace. Emma read the message 3 times before deleting it. Michael Torrance was dead. The man who'd saved Lily's life. The man who'd owned Emma's loyalty like property. The man who'd killed 23 people and destroyed countless more. Dead by his own hand, or more likely, by someone who couldn't risk what he might reveal. Emma waited to feel something. Relief? Satisfaction? Closure? Instead, she just felt tired. That evening, she told Lily about Michael's death. They sat on their couch, the TV muted, processing the news together. How do you feel? Lily asked. I don't know. Empty, maybe? He was a monster, but he also saved your life. I should hate him completely, but I can't, and I should be glad he's dead, but I'm not. I just ... I don't know. That's okay. You don't have to know. Complicated people deserve complicated feelings. When did you get so wise? When I almost died and my sister saved me. Gives you perspective. Lily leaned her head on Emma's shoulder. You know what I think? I think Michael Torrance was a test. Not the kind he set up with his notes and games. A real test. Of who you are when the world gives you impossible choices. And you passed, You saved me without losing yourself. That's extraordinary. I lost myself for a while. Those 3 years carrying the guilt about Vincent, but you found yourself again. That's what matters. Maybe Lily was right. Maybe the point wasn't avoiding mistakes or always choosing correctly. Maybe the point was learning, growing, becoming someone who could face impossible choices and still find a way to do the right thing. Emma pulled out her laptop and opened her book manuscript. She'd finished the first draft last week, all 287 pages of thinly fictionalized truth. Now she was in revisions, trying to find the story's heart beneath all the plot and tension and drama. She scrolled to the final chapter and began to write. In the end, the $2 tip wasn't about the money. It was never about the money. It was about what came next. The note. The choice. The moment when she could have walked away, pretended she'd never seen it, gone back to her safe, small life of guilt and fear. But she'd looked. She'd read. She'd acted. And that simple act of curiosity, of courage, of refusing to play by someone else's rules had changed everything. The note had said, "Your life depends on it," and it had been right. Not because opening it saved her life, though it did, but because it gave her a life worth saving. A life where she wasn't owned, where her choices were her own. Where she could look at her sister and know that the sacrifice had been worth it, even with all its terrible costs. She'd lost her name, her home, her history, every photograph of her parents, every memory of the person she'd been before Michael Torrance bought her soul for $500,000. But she'd gained something more important, the knowledge that when tested, when pushed to her absolute limit, she'd chosen justice over safety, truth over comfort, her sister's future over her own. And maybe that's what being a hero really meant. Not perfection, not fearlessness. Just the willingness to pay the price that freedom demanded. The $2 tip had been an insult. The note underneath had been a threat. But together, they'd been something else entirely. A key to unlock the cage she'd been living in. And she'd had the courage to use it. Emma stopped typing and read what she'd written. Tears streamed down her face, the good kind. The kind that came from releasing something you'd been holding too tightly for too long. You okay? Lily asked from across the room. Yeah, Emma said, and for the first time in 3 years, she meant it. Yeah, I really am. 1 year later. Emma stood in a bookstore in a city she'd never been to, wearing sunglasses and a hat pulled low, holding a hardcover book with a cover that showed a single-dollar bill folded into an origami key. The title read, The Price of Freedom by Hannah Mitchell. Her book, her story. Published under her new name, with enough details changed that no one would connect it to the real Michael Torrance case, but with enough truth that it mattered. The store clerk smiled at her. That's a good one. The author did a great interview about it last week. Talked about how sometimes the hardest choice is deciding whether you're worth saving. Emma managed to smile back. Yeah, I heard. She bought the book, her own book, which felt surreal, and walked out into the sunshine. Lily was waiting in the car, her nursing scrubs visible under her jacket. How's it feel? Lily asked as Emma got in. Seeing your book in an actual store? Weird. Good weird. Like proof that we're real. That all of it actually happened. It happened. We've got the scars to prove it. Lily started the car. Where to now? Emma looked at her sister, healthy and whole and alive, and felt that familiar surge of gratitude and love and residual terror that she might lose her. But the terror was quieter now, manageable, the kind you could live with. Home, Emma said. Let's go home. They drove through streets Emma had learned to navigate, past buildings she'd learned to recognize, toward the apartment that wasn't much but was theirs. Safe, anonymous, free. As they pulled into their parking spot, Emma touched the key necklace at her throat, Victoria Hollis' chess necklace, and thought about all the keys she'd encountered in the past year. The brass key to the safe deposit box. The key-shaped dollar bill on her book cover. This necklace. All of them symbols of the same thing. The choice to unlock your own cage even when you don't know what's waiting outside. That night, Emma got one final message. From a blocked number she'd learned to recognize as James Reeves. Congratulations on the book. Victoria would be proud. So you took your pain and turned it into something that might help others facing impossible choices. That's the best any of us can do. I'm retiring for real this time. Moving somewhere quiet. Trying to find peace, same as you. Take care of yourself and Lily. You both deserved a better start, but you've built something good from the wreckage. That's worth celebrating. This is goodbye for real. No more messages. No more looking back, just forward. Be well, be free. Junior Emma read the message, then deleted it, as she always did. She opened the blank document on her laptop and started typing. Dear James, thank you. For everything. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. For giving me the tools to fight back. For finishing what Victoria started. I hope you find your peace. You've earned it. I'm going to keep writing. Keep telling stories about people in impossible situations who find the courage to save themselves. Maybe my book will reach someone who needs it. Someone trapped like I was. Maybe it'll help them see that there's always a choice, even when it doesn't feel like it. Victoria gave me a key. You taught me how to use it. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure their sacrifices mattered. Be well. Be free. Be happy. Emma, but you can call me Hannah. She saved the message but didn't send it. James wouldn't see it. But writing it felt important, like closing a chapter that had been left open too long. Emma closed her laptop and went to the window. The ocean stretched out before her, dark and vast and full of possibility. Somewhere out there, James Reeves was finding peace. Somewhere underground, Michael Torrance was finally paying for his crimes. Somewhere in memory, Victoria Hollis rested, knowing her fight hadn't been in vain. And here, in this small apartment by the sea, Emma Wilson, now Hannah Mitchell, and her sister Lily were building a life from the ashes of everything they'd lost. It wasn't the life Emma had planned. It wasn't the life she wanted when she was 22 and studying pre-law and dreaming of making the world better. But it was hers, truly hers, not bought, not borrowed, not owned by anyone else. And that made it worth every terrible choice, every sleepless night, every moment of fear and guilt and pain. Emma touched the key necklace one more time, feeling its weight against her heart. Then she turned away from the window, away from the past, and walked toward her sister, toward the future, toward whatever came next. Free. Finally, beautifully, terrifyingly free. The coffee shop was busy for a Tuesday morning, filled with the usual mix of remote workers hunched over laptops and students cramming for exams. She still thought of herself as Emma sometimes. Even after 5 years of being Hannah Mitchell sat in the corner booth, her second book manuscript open on her tablet, a half-empty latte cooling beside her. She was stuck on a scene. The protagonist was facing a choice between telling the truth and protecting someone she loved. Emma knew how the scene should go, she'd lived some version of it, but the words wouldn't come. They felt false every time she tried. "Excuse me?" Emma looked up. A young woman stood beside her table, maybe 25, with nervous eyes and hands that twisted together anxiously. She held a worn copy of The Price of Freedom, Emma's book, with colorful tabs sticking out from between the pages. "Are you Hannah Mitchell?" the woman asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Emma's instinct was to say no. 5 years in witness protection had trained her to deflect, deny, disappear. But something in the woman's expression, desperate hope mixed with fear, made her pause. "I am," Emma said carefully. "Can I help you? I'm sorry to bother you. I know you probably don't do this, but I. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "I read your book 3 times, and I think I'm in a situation like your character, like Emma in the story. And I don't know what to do." Emma's chest tightened. This happened occasionally. Readers who recognized themselves in the fictionalized version of her life, who reached out seeking answers she didn't know if she had the right to give. "Would you like to sit down?" Emma asked, gesturing to the empty seat across from her. The woman sat quickly, clutching the book like a lifeline. "My name is Rebecca. I'm a social worker. 6 months ago, I discovered that my supervisor was falsifying records, billing for services we never provided to vulnerable kids. Medicaid fraud, basically, thousands of dollars. Did you report it?" "I tried. I went to her boss, but he's her brother-in-law. Then I went to the state licensing board, but nothing happened. And now ... Rebecca's voice cracked. "Now my supervisor knows I reported her. She's making my life hell. Cutting my hours, giving me impossible caseloads, documenting every tiny mistake. She told me if I don't drop it, she makes sure I never work in social services again." Emma felt the familiar weight of someone else's impossible choice settling on her shoulders. "What do you want to do?" "I want to keep fighting. Those kids deserve better. But I also need my job. I have student loans, rent, my mom's medical bills. And I'm scared. Not just of losing my job, but of what else she might do." Rebecca looked at Emma with desperate eyes. "In your book, Emma makes the hard choice. She risks everything to do the right thing, but you don't say what happens after. You don't say if it was worth it." Emma was quiet for a long moment, thinking about how to answer. The truth was complicated, messy, not the kind of thing that fit neatly into an inspirational ending. "Can I tell you something that's not in the book?" Emma asked. Rebecca nodded eagerly. "The character in my story, she lost almost everything. Her name, her home, her entire identity. She had to start over completely, and for years, she wasn't sure if she'd made the right choice. She had nightmares, panic attacks, moments where she regretted everything." Rebecca's face fell. "So you're saying I shouldn't—" "No, I'm saying it was hard. It's hard, but here's what else isn't in the book. That woman also gained something. She learned she was stronger than she thought. She discovered she could survive things she'd never imagined surviving. And most importantly, she learned she could live with herself. She could look in the mirror without seeing someone who stayed silent while people got hurt. But was it worth it? The cost?" Emma thought about Lily, now married to a kind man she'd met at the hospital, expecting their first child. About the book that had helped hundreds of readers facing their own impossible choices. About the key necklace she still wore every day. About sleeping without guilt gnawing at her conscience. "Yes," Emma said simply. "It was worth it. But Rebecca, I can't tell you what to do. Your situation is different. Your risks are different. Only you can decide what you're willing to lose and what you need to save." "How did you decide? In real life, I mean." "Not the book," Emma smiled sadly. "I had help. People who believed me, who guided me, who caught me when I fell. You shouldn't have to do this alone." She pulled out her phone, still the basic model the marshals provided, still with limited contacts, and opened her notes. She'd been keeping a list for years now, ever since readers started reaching out. Resources, organizations, people who helped whistleblowers, who protected people who spoke truth to power. "Here," Emma said, writing down several phone numbers and websites on a napkin. "These are organizations that help people in your situation. Lawyers who work pro bono, advocacy groups, witness protection programs for whistleblowers. Call them. Tell them what you told me. Let them help you navigate this." Rebecca took the napkin with shaking hands. "Thank you." Thank you so much. One more thing, Emma said. Whatever you decide, fight or walk away, make sure it's your choice. Not what you think you should do, not what others expect, your choice. That's the only way you'll be able to live with it. Rebecca nodded, tears streaming down her face now. Can I ask you something else? Of course. The woman in your book, Emma, does she ever stop being afraid? Emma thought about the nightmares that still came sometimes, usually around the anniversary of that night in the warehouse. About how she still checked over her shoulder in parking lots, still kept her phone charged and close, still had an emergency bag packed in her closet just in case. No, Emma said honestly. But she learns to be afraid and brave at the same time. And that's enough. Rebecca wiped her eyes, clutching the book and the napkin like they were treasure maps. Thank you. For the book. For talking to me. For being honest. After she left, Emma sat for a long time staring at her manuscript without seeing it. She thought about all the Rebeccas out there, facing their own Michael Torrances, making their own impossible choices. She thought about Victoria Hollis, whose courage had rippled forward through time, touching lives she'd never known existed. Emma's phone rang. Lily's name appeared on the screen. Well, not Lily anymore, technically, but Emma still thought of her that way. Hey sis, Emma answered. Hey, you busy? I wanted to show you something. Never too busy for you. What's up? Hold on, switching to video. Lily's face appeared on the screen, glowing with that particular joy that came from pregnancy in the final trimester. Behind her, Emma could see the nursery they'd been setting up, soft yellow walls. A crib with animal-themed bedding, a rocking chair by the window. Look what came today! Lily held up a tiny onesie that read, My aunt is my hero. Emma felt her throat tighten. Lil ... Don't cry, you'll make me cry and I'm already an emotional mess. But Lily was grinning, happy tears already forming. I wanted you to know that this baby, your niece, she's going to know her aunt is brave. Not perfect, not fearless. But brave when it mattered most. I'm not, yes, you are. And I'm going to make sure she knows. The sanitized version when she's little, obviously. But someday, when she's old enough, I'm going to tell her about how her aunt faced down a monster to save me. How she sacrificed everything so I could have this life. Lily placed her hand on her swollen belly. This baby exists because you were brave, Hannah. Whatever we call you. You gave me a future, and now I am giving you a niece who will love you just as much as I do. Emma couldn't speak. She just nodded, tears flowing freely now. Also, Lily added, her tone turning mischievous, we've been thinking about names. If it's okay with you, we want to name her Victoria. After the woman who helped save us both. Emma's breath caught. Victoria. The woman she'd never met but who changed her life. The woman whose courage had shown Emma what was possible when you refused to stay silent. She would have loved that, Emma whispered. So would her parents. I reached out to them through that lawyer you told me about. Asked if they'd mind. They said they'd be honored. After they hung up, Emma sat in the coffee shop, her cold latte forgotten, and felt something shift inside her. A lightness she hadn't felt in years. The guilt that had been her constant companion since that first delivery to Michael Torrance, it didn't disappear, but it changed. Transformed into something else. Purpose, maybe, or meaning. She looked down at her manuscript, at the scene she'd been stuck on. The protagonist facing an impossible choice. And suddenly, Emma knew exactly what to write. She began typing. Sarah stood at the crossroads of her life, knowing that whatever she chose would cost her something. There was no right answer, no perfect solution. Just two paths, both lined with pain and uncertainty. But here's what she'd learned. The cost of speaking up was temporary. The cost of staying silent was permanent. She could lose her job, her reputation, her safety. But those things could be rebuilt. What couldn't be rebuilt was her sense of self if she walked away from someone who needed her voice. So she chose. Not because it was easy, not because she knew how it would end, but because in the moment of choosing, she discovered who she really was. And that was worth everything. Emma wrote for 3 hours straight, the words pouring out of her like water from a broken dam. By the time she stopped, she'd finished the chapter, resolved the protagonist's crisis, and found the emotional core of the entire book. As the sun began to set outside the coffee shop window, Emma packed up her things. She touched the key necklace at her throat, Victoria's necklace, and thought about the chain of courage that connected them all. Victoria to James to Emma to Lily to Rebecca to countless others whose names she'd never know. One person's brave choice could ripple forward, touching lives across years and distances, inspiring courage in places the original person would never see. Emma had been that person for Rebecca today. Victoria had been that person for Emma 5 years ago. And someday, baby Victoria would grow up hearing stories about the courage of the women who came before her, learning that when faced with impossible choices, you could choose to be brave. The cycle continued, the courage multiplied. And the world, slowly, imperceptibly, became a little bit better because someone, somewhere, decided that silence was more expensive than truth. Emma walked out of the coffee shop into the evening air. The ocean breeze carried the smell of salt and possibility. Somewhere in the city, Lily was preparing a nursery for a baby named after a hero. Somewhere else, Rebecca was calling the numbers Emma had given her, taking the first step toward speaking up. And somewhere in memory, Victoria Hollis smiled, knowing her death had planted seeds that were still growing, still blooming, still changing lives. Emma pulled out her phone and sent a text to Lily. Tell Victoria when she's old enough to understand that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. Tell her that's her legacy. That's what we all owe each other. Lily's response came immediately. I will. Love you, sis. Love you too, always. Emma slipped her phone back into her pocket and walked toward her car. Tomorrow, she'd work on her book some more. Next week, she had a speaking engagement at a women's shelter, talking about finding your voice after trauma. Next month, Lily would have the baby, and Emma would become an aunt to a little girl named after a hero. But tonight, she was just Hannah Mitchell, formerly Emma Wilson, walking through a city she'd learned to call home, wearing a key around her neck, carrying stories that needed to be told. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. 2 weeks after her conversation with Rebecca, Emma received a package at her P.O. box. No return address. Just her name, her real name, Emma Wilson, written in handwriting she didn't recognize. Her hands trembled as she carried it to her car. 5 years of safety, and someone had found her real name. Someone knew who she really was. She sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes, staring at the package, before finally tearing it open. Inside was a USB drive and a letter on expensive stationery. Emma unfolded the letter with shaking hands. Dear Emma, you don't know me, but I knew Michael Torrance. I was his lawyer for 15 years, the one who drew up contracts, managed legal issues, and yes, helped him stay one step ahead of the law. I'm not proud of what I did. I told myself I was just doing my job, but I knew. Deep down, I always knew. When Michael died in prison, he left something with me. Instructions that if anything happened to him, I was to deliver this to you after 5 years had passed. He said you'd understand why. I don't know what's on this drive. Michael sealed it himself. But he told me to tell you this. She earned the truth. All of it. I'm dying now. Cancer, stage 4. I have maybe 3 months left. I've spent the last year trying to make amends for the lives I helped destroy. I've given testimony to federal prosecutors about other clients. I've donated money to victims' families. But I can't die without fulfilling this last obligation. Whatever Michael left you, I hope it brings you peace, or at least understanding. I'm sorry for my part in your suffering. Douglas Whitmore-esque. Emma stared at the USB drive. Michael's final message, delivered from beyond the grave. Every instinct told her to destroy it, throw it in the ocean, pretend she'd never received it. But she'd spent 5 years learning that running from truth only gave it more power. She drove home and plugged the USB into her laptop. A single video file for Emma Wilson. Emma clicked play. Michael Torrance appeared on screen, sitting in what looked like an expensive hotel room. He was thinner than she remembered, grayer, but his eyes held that same calculating intelligence. The timestamp showed the video was recorded 3 days before his arrest. Hello, Emma, Michael said, his voice exactly as she remembered it, smooth, controlled, almost warm. If you're watching this, I'm either dead or locked up forever. Either way, I wanted you to know the truth. All of it, not the sanitized version you got from Victoria or James or the FBI. The real story. Emma's jaw clenched. But she kept watching. You think I'm a monster. I understand why. But let me tell you about monsters, Emma. Real monsters. When I was 12 years old, my father lost everything in a business deal. A man named Richard Chun, Victoria's father, destroyed him deliberately, methodically, legally. Bought out his company for pennies, left him bankrupt and broken. My father killed himself 2 months later. Emma's breath caught. Victoria's father? I spent the next 25 years building an empire for one purpose, revenge. Everything I did, the money laundering, The acquisitions, the careful cultivation of power was about destroying the Chen family the way they destroyed mine. And I did it. I took Richard Chen's company, his reputation, his health. He died knowing I'd won. Michael leaned closer to the camera. But here's what Victoria never knew, what no one knew. Her father was innocent. He didn't destroy my father's business. My father made terrible decisions, gambled on bad investments, and blamed Chen when it all collapsed. I learned the truth 15 years ago. Found documents that proved my father lied about everything. Emma felt sick. By then, I'd already become what I'd sworn to destroy. A man who ruined lives for profit, who killed without remorse, who owned people like property. I couldn't stop. The monster I'd created to get revenge had consumed who I used to be. Victoria started collecting evidence against me, trying to take down her father's destroyer, never knowing that her father was innocent, and I was the villain of a story I'd written wrong. Michael's expression was unreadable. When I met you 3 years before my arrest, I saw something I'd lost. Innocence, maybe, or just someone willing to make terrible choices for love. You reminded me that there was once a version of me who would have done anything to save someone I cared about. Before I became this, he paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. I could have found someone else to courier those Vincent documents, anyone, but I chose you deliberately. I wanted to see if you'd be corrupted by it, if one bad choice would transform you the way it transformed me. And when you carried that guilt for 3 years, when I saw it eating at you, I knew you were different. You stayed good despite what I made you do. Emma's tears fell freely now. The note I left you at the Meridian, the one that started everything that was my gift to you, Emma, my chance to set you free. I'd put you in Victoria's path, knowing she'd drag you into the fight against me. I made sure James Reeves found out about you. I orchestrated my own downfall using you as the catalyst. Michael smiled, and for the first time, it looked genuine. I couldn't save myself, but I could save you. I could make sure that when this was over, you'd be free of me, free of the guilt, free of the cage I'd built around you. You think you beat me? Emma, I let you win. Because maybe, just maybe, if I saved one person from becoming what I became, my life wasn't completely worthless. He stood up, preparing to end the recording. By the time you see this, I'll be gone. Good. The world is better without me. But you need to know, Lily's medical trust? It's still active, managed by trustees who will never know who funded it. Your sister and her daughter Victoria, right? I like that they'll be taken care of. My last act as a monster was making sure my last act of goodness couldn't be undone. Michael looked directly into the camera, and Emma saw something she'd never seen before. Regret. Real, human regret. Don't forgive me. I don't deserve it. Don't romanticize me. I'm everything you think I am. But know this. You saved yourself, Emma. I just opened the door. You were brave enough to walk through it. That courage, that's all yours. Hold on to it. Teach it to little Victoria. Break the cycle of revenge and corruption that I couldn't break. He reached for the camera, then stopped. One more thing. Rebecca Hollis, Victoria's daughter's daughter, born 2 months ago. Her parents are naming her Emma, after you. Victoria's parents wanted you to know that their family story has a hero now. And it's not me. It's you. The video ended. Emma sat in silence, the truth of Michael's final confession washing over her in waves. He'd orchestrated his own destruction. He'd saved her by letting her defeat him. The monster had killed himself by proxy, using Emma as the weapon and Victoria's evidence as the bullet. She thought about complexity, how people could be both villain and victim, monster and savior, corrupt and capable of final grace. Michael Torrance had destroyed lives, including his own. But in the end, he'd given Emma something precious. The truth, and the knowledge that her courage had been real, even if the victory had been designed. Emma closed her laptop and walked to the window. The sun was setting over the ocean, painting the sky in impossible colors. Tomorrow, she'd call Lily and tell her about the video. Or maybe she wouldn't. Maybe some truths were meant to stay private, carried by one person so others could sleep at night. She touched Victoria's key necklace, thinking about names and legacies and the strange ways people saved each other across chasms of time and circumstance. Michael had been right about one thing. She'd walked through that door he opened. But what she built on the other side, the life, the courage, the choice to keep being good even when it was hard, that was all hers. And that was enough. Emma picked up her phone and texted Lily, "I love you. Tell Victoria, both Victorias, that courage is contagious. Pass it on." Then she deleted the video, destroyed the USB drive. and walked out into the evening to meet her sister for dinner. The past was finally, truly behind her. The future waited, full of tiny Victorias and Emmas and Rebeccas who would face their own impossible choices and need to know that courage, real courage, was always possible. Even for people who started as monsters, even for people who felt like victims. Especially for people brave enough to choose who they wanted to become.